The movie begins with footage of a social worker, a cameraman, and a police officer arriving at a house. They've come to check on a kid named Toshio after getting a complaint about alleged child mistreatment from neighbors. When no one responds, they enter the house, which is in disarray and stinks horribly. Soon after that, the social worker and the police officer exit the room, terrified by what they just saw. The cameraman then enters the room where he discovers Toshio's body inside a closet, lying in a pool of blood. He collapses in shock, but just then, the ghost of Toshio appears right in front of him. In the next scene, we see a woman named Yui arriving at the school for a job interview. Yui is offered the position of a grade 3 homeroom teacher since the last teacher suddenly resigned from the school. She's overjoyed to get the job and calls her boyfriend, Naoto, who celebrates the news. The next morning, on the first day of her class, Yui notices the absence of a boy called Toshio Saiki, who hasn't shown up in 7 days. She then tries to contact his parents but receives no response. Later, Yui discovers the notes of the previous teacher, Mr. Konishi, and learns that when Toshio did not show up for several days, he went to the house to check what was going on. After her class, Yui finds a peculiar spiral pattern carved upon Toshio's desk. In another scene, we see 4 schoolgirls, Aoi, Rina, Yayoi, and Nanami. The girls arrive at a house that has been put up for sale by Aoi's big sister, who's a real estate agent. Despite being rumored to be a haunted house, they think it's fun to visit and goof around. When the others begin to enter the house, Nanami claims she'll wait outside for them, but is dragged inside by Rina. Later, Nanami hears a kid singing upstairs, so she heads towards it. Meanwhile, Yayoi discovers a couple of creepy drawings lying around, and the girls look at them and burst out laughing. Moments later, Nanami walks into the second floor bedroom, which is dark, and attempts to turn on the light. The light flashes briefly when Toshio approaches behind her and sees blood flowing from the floor and closet. The place starts to shake severely, so she panics and tries to leave, but Toshio arrives and holds her. Nanami screams in terror and flees the room, where she runs into her friends. Seeing her terrified, her friends make fun of her and they all leave the house feeling bored. The scene then turns to Yui, who visits Toshio's house after being unable to contact his family. She notices a little hand dangling from the window and assumes it's Toshio. She then rings the doorbell but receives no response, so she walks inside. There, she meets Toshio's mother, Kayako, who looks very pale and creepy. Kayako informs her that Toshio's father has taken him away and that he'll return home soon, but Yui hears a kid singing upstairs, and when she follows the sound, she enters a room where she notices a duct-taped closet. She rips the closet but finds it empty. Suddenly, Kayako appears and invites her to join her for tea downstairs. As Yuri comes down, she notices empty teacups and Kayako drawing something. Yui hears her singing and asks if she's okay, but receives no response. She then moves in closer and discovers Kayako staring and rattling at her while furiously drawing spirals. Terrified by this sight, Yui immediately leaves the house while the door closes itself behind her. After this, we see Yayoi, who is playing basketball at her school. Soon she's drawn by a noise behind a curtain, and when she goes to check, Yayoi discovers the piano playing on its own. Suddenly, she's grabbed by Toshio, so she runs from there and arrives at the empty infirmary. She then begins to tremble from the cold, so she climbs into bed where she finds one of the drawings she discovers in the house. Just then, something moves beneath the sheets, and Toshio appears in front of Yayoi and seemingly kills her. In another scene, Yui meets the principal, who inquires about her to visit Toshio's house. Yui reveals that she met the mother, but something seemed off about her. She then asks if she can meet with the previous teacher, Mr. Konishi, but the principal informs her that Konishi was found dead this morning. The following day, Yui is relieved to see Toshio among her students. He then begins humming his song while scratching spirals on his desk. Yui asks him to stop doing that, but he completely disregards her words. Agitated by this, she aggressively grabs his hand, but Toshio vanishes, and Yui realizes that only she is able to see him. In another scene, Nanami and Aoi arrive to see Rina, who has locked herself up in her room. When they go inside, they discover her shaking and hiding beneath a desk. Upon inquiring about what's wrong, Rina panics and screams that the white boy is after them. Nanami then spots Toshio in the room and informs Aoi they must leave. Aoi gives a protective charm to Rina and they flee the house in terror. Later, Rina proceeds to make tea and gets milk from the refrigerator. She tries to pour it into a cup, but the milk transforms into blood. The teapot begins to heat up and the lid bursts, causing her face to burn. Just then, Toshio unlocks the refrigerator, grabs Rina from behind, and drags her inside to kill her. Next, Yui's boyfriend, Naoto, is working on his laptop when he hears some strange noises. He then hears a cat screeching inside his microwave, but when he opens it, he finds nothing. Meanwhile, in school, a sleepy Yui finds herself drawing spirals on the papers. Her colleagues depart from the room one by one until she's the only one left. She briefly dozes off, but soon wakes up by Toshio calling her teacher. Just then, she notices Kayako leaving the office and follows her to the classroom where she finds Kayako's diary. And as she proceeds to read it, Kayako suddenly appears behind her and possesses her. Later, when Naoto gets home, Yui is staring blankly out the window. She doesn't respond to him and begins tracing a spiral with her finger on the window. Soon after, she passes out, so Naoto tucks her into bed. He then goes through Yui's bag, where he finds Kayako's diary and reads it. The diary has multiple entries, in which Kayako talks about her desire for a child, but is unable to have one. She blames it on her husband, Taiko, who is often away for work. Each entry in her journal seems more desperate than the last, indicating that she was willing to go to any length to have a baby. According to a later entry, while Taiko was away, a mysterious boy appeared and called her mother. Kayako claims that she's certain she got pregnant after that. While reading all of this, Naoto notices an eye in the diary. So he screams in terror and immediately leaves the apartment. In another scene, Aoi is asking her realtor sister about the haunted house, but her sister is unwilling to share any details. Her sister's husband, Kyosuke, asks if she's been in that house, but Aoi denies it. After that, Aoi goes to the restroom and looks in the mirror, where she sees Toshio out of nowhere. In a state of panic, she freezes on her step while Toshio grabs her lower jaw and rips it off. Just then, her sister hears her screams and rushes to the bathroom where she discovers blood in the sink along with Aoi's ripped jaw in the shower. Then, we see Nanami in the subway when she notices Aoi and Rina's ghosts nearby. She then tries to talk with them, but they turn around, showing their hideous face. Nanami falls on the floor and tries to flee, but she is quickly transported to Toshio's house. She then drops her bags on the steps, before being smashed against the wall and dragged away. Following that, Aoi's sister leads two possible buyers into the house. A couple who is none other than Takayo and Kayako Saiki. She asks Takayo if his wife is aware of the past of his house, and Takayo responds that she is, and claims that the story doesn't bother her. The couple gladly agrees to buy the house, and Aoi's sister notices Nanami's bag on the stairs. In the next scene, Naoto begins to investigate the cursed house and comes across Aoi's brother-in-law, Kyosuke. He inquires about what is wrong with the family, but Kyosuke tells him that while there's nothing wrong with the family, the house is a little strange. He claims that a child died in the house 19 years ago, referring to the child discovered at the beginning of the film. Kyosuke reveals that 10 years ago, his wife and sister Aoi went inside the house and later died. It's then revealed that the two scenarios taking place throughout the movie are set in a different time frame, which is 10 years apart. Next, Naoto goes to a library and reads about the first event that caused the curse 19 years ago. Toshio Yamagi, a 9-year-old child, had been kept in the room for 7 days without food or water when he was discovered with his wrists and feet bound inside the upstairs closet. Naoto realizes he's doomed since he's also visited the house a few days earlier. Later, when he returns to his apartment, Naoto discovers Yui asleep in the bed with something moving beneath the blankets. However, when he removes the blanket, he finds nothing there. Later, he looks on the internet and discovers that Toshio Yamaga and Toshio Saiki are the same person. Just then, Kayako appears behind him and starts turning his head backward until she eventually snaps his neck and kills him. Sometime later, Yui recovers from her possession and wakes up. Upon seeing Naoto dead, she starts to scream in horror and grief before eventually collapsing to the floor. The next day, the devastated Yui arrives at the school and stands in front of a window in her classroom. She then looks at Toshio's desk with hatred and decides to get revenge for Naoto. She returns to the haunted house and enters Toshio's room, where she opens the closet. There, she finds a box containing the Saiki family album and home movies. Yui looks through the album and discovers that all of the pictures of Toshio have his face scratched off. She watches the videos of newborn Toshio as they appear to be a family at first. However, it looks as Toshio grew up, he started hating his father. She also discovers one more tape tucked inside an envelope. And when Yui looks at the footage, she discovers that Kayako became pregnant, not by Taiko, but by the ghost of Toshio entering her body while she was sleeping. Right then, Tokyo's face appears on the screen, frightening her to the core. Following this, Yui sees a vision of what happened at the house 10 years ago. She notices an angry Taiko confronting Kayako about Toshio's true nature. Kayako claims that Toshio is her only child and that he has nothing to do with his birth. Hearing this, Taiko assumes she cheated on him, so he kills her by cracking her neck in front of Toshio. He then kills Toshio's cat by placing him in a microwave. After that, he approaches Toshio with the knife, but the vision ends before we see what happens. Following this, Yui returns to the upstairs closet and pokes her head in the attic, where she finds Kayako's dead body, which awakens and crawls towards her. She immediately rushes downstairs, where Toshio appears and calls her teacher once again. Yui begs him to help her and spare her life, but he ignores her pleas. Just then, Yui hears a rattling sound and notices Kayako on the ceiling. She again rushes upstairs, where Toshio grabs her belly and calls her mother. However, she screams in horror and disgust and runs away from him. As the two ghosts corner her, Yui is suddenly brought back to her apartment, where she awakens in her bed. Yui hears Naoto's voice and assumes it was just a nightmare. However, as she enters the living room, she's horrified to see Naoto's ghost rattling and approaching her with his head still snapped. As the movie ends, we see Toshio appearing on the table behind her and staring at her.